As we have noted throughout the week, this has been a very global space symposium. Our next panel stresses the new environment of global contributions, and to lead the panel, we are pleased to have General Lance Lord, former commander of Air Force Space Command and who is well known on this stage. General Lord, we look forward to your panel.
On behalf of our panel to present to you right before lunch today a coalition perspective on cooperation in this amazing environment. I don't know how many in the audience were here Monday night, but we got your KA band, you got your KU band, you got your L band, you got your C band, and you got your Smash Mouth band. And for those in the audience who didn't quite catch all the lyrics of Walking on the Sun, I printed those out and those will be available afterwards. But I would like to take two sentences out of that, or two stanzas out of those lyrics, and tell you why I think Elliott and the Space Foundation have done such a wonderful job of putting things together, because it talks about cooperation, and since it might not have been loud enough for you to hear it, I wanted to repeat them for you. Walking on the sun, it ain't no joke, I'd like to buy the world a toque and teach the world to sing in perfect harmony. And that was, those were the first two lines of that, or first two stanzas of that Smash Mouth's Walking on the Sun. But speak to cooperation and teaching the world to sing. I mean, really, mobile satellite services and the connectivity and the world where everything is connected to everything is important for us to talk about what it means to cooperate in that environment. And certainly in times that General Shelton spoke about earlier this week, and we've been talking about, you know, where we're going to be financially, certainly in the military as well as in an economic sense, it's time to really talk and focus on different perspectives and cooperation. So that's what I'd like to do with today's panel, is really speak to those terms. You know, everything is connected to everything in the information age, and cooperation is a great way to get the most out of the capability. With us today, three distinguished panelists, Brigadier General Chris Badia, Head of Division Strategic Defense Planning and Concepts, the German Federal Ministry of Defense. General Badia is currently the Head of Division Strategic Defense Planning and Concepts for the German MOD in Bonn. And having served in Germany in the mid-'80s and several trips to Bonn to negotiate with the Ministry of Defense, a tremendous organization. Previous to that, he was Assistant Chief of Staff Plans and Policies, Headquarters of the German Air Force, Commander of the Fighter Wing 71 Richthofen at Whitman, a graduate from Shepherd Air Force Base and 3,000 hours plus in the F-4, two young ladies, daughters, and one studying law and school and politics, so going to take after their dad for sure. Part of the 100 plus members of the German team here this week to really help share in the perspective. So we'll hear from Christian here in just a minute. Following Christian, we'll have Samer Halawi, who's the Chief Executive Officer of Thuraya Communications. He's been there since 2011, and I know you know that's a mobile satellite services company. He's responsible for leading their strategic positioning and driving its growth. He played a leading role in starting up and growing a new venture involved in the digital space and focusing on mobile content, mobile advertising, and web management. Also worked early in his career in Michigan for Chrysler and Ford Motor Companies. He's a graduate of the U of M, Michigan. And he's, like many Michigan graduates, I'm sure, was feeling kind of sorry Monday night after they lost to Louisville, but those freshmen will be back, there's no doubt about it, just like Thuraya is going to be around for a long time. Last but certainly not least, Rupert Pearce, Chief Executive Officer of Inmarsat, mobile satellite service globally for over 30 plus years. Prior to becoming CEO in 2012, Rupert was the Inmarsat Group General Counsel. He told me he's an ex-lawyer, and I think that's probably pretty good. You know, Tuesday was a pretty cold day in Colorado after a nice day on Monday, and it was so cold in Colorado that the lawyers had their hands in their own pockets. So I previewed that with him. He said it was okay for me to say that. Position of Senior Vice President, Inmarsat Enterprises, brings to us discussion today a background in transatlantic venture capitalist experience And if anything is really conflicted sometimes and complicated by the laws of not only the United States, but all the countries in which mobile satellite services are used, satellite landing rights, all the things that go with that, having the CEO of a major mobile satellite services business that also has got tremendous law background is important. So we're delighted to have him. He's a family man as well, 3 boys and a girl, an avid sailor, and certainly a sportsman. And we're delighted to have all 3 of our panel members. So what our plan is about 8 to 10 minutes, and I'm watching the clock. Big red numbers down here, you can't miss them. And we're going to ask General Badia to start first, and then Sammer next, and then Rupert will finish up, and then we'll have time for some Q&A. So, General Badia.
Thank you. Well, General Lord, thanks for the kind introduction, your kind words. Distinguished audience, good morning. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank that we, the German contingent, have, of course, first of all, the chance being here discussing, seeing things about the way you foresee all the topics on space, but also discussing with you how we might see things and look forward into the space world. And I guess it's no surprise to you if I tell you, well, listening through all the discussions and the panels so far, from a German ally and friend perspective, we are thinking along the same lines when it comes to space and using all the assets in space. But, however, there are still different things. The way we do business, the way we see it, and I'm going to talk to you about it in a minute. And last but not least, what I also observed during the last 3 days, everybody talks about, well, additional tasks, doing the same tasks, having less resources, having less troops, and budgetary issues. And I can tell you one thing, and if you want to bet on it, it will come, and you will have to cope with it. While I'm saying that, I want to give you a short German military perspective on what happened to us, and you see it on the first bullet there, because we are right in the restructuring of our German armed forces. We did a 2-year analysis on what we foresee, what to do, and since 10 months we are already in the process, and our restructuring process is scheduled to go out to 2017. So by that time we hope to be finished. As you can see, well, we adjusted our level of ambition. For what reasons did we adjust our level of ambitions? Well, first of all, we see there are new challenges out there in the world, and we have to cope with them, and we have to adjust. But not only that, and that might be true for all of our forces, it's also demography. Because in former times, in the old days, we could, for instance, in Germany, we could pull on 600,000 young men. We needed about 60,000 per year. Nowadays, we can pull on 300,000, and that's why we changed from a conscription army or armed forces into a professional armed forces structure. And of course, the same thing goes with budget. We have quite some numbers on budget restraints, and just to give you one number, we had to come down from our forces. We are 255,000 men and women strong in uniform. Now we are 175,000, and we lost 22% of our fighter force, 50% of our main operating bases, all those things, and this will happen out to 2017. So if we talk about restructuring, we have a pretty good experience what that does to us and what it means. But the other thing I want to talk to you about is, and I heard it on General Keller's speech as well, you know, if you talk on a US perspective, it's always, they say it's commercial space and there is the military or state space part to it. For us, you see that we go with a whole of nation approach, because it's just for us, it's unaffordable to divide those things. And be it communications, navigation, Earth observation, or whatever, we always look at it from one state perspective. We look to go on a cooperation right away and try to make it happen from that point and try to go along with the requirements we have. The same thing goes for space situational awareness. Our space national space strategy tells us and gives us the task from the military side of the house to take care of space situational awareness, but also this goes already right from the get-go on cooperation, and I'll talk to you about that one in a minute as well. So to what it comes down to basically is, if we talk or look at space from a military perspective, and that's been said throughout the week, it's the same with us. There will be no operation out there without reliability and assured access to space. For us, what it does to us is, of course, we also always say it's decision superiority and mission assurance. Those are the two things we need, and we are convinced, deeply convinced, we only can achieve that if we have access, assured access to all our space assets. Now, how do we look at it if we say, well, we go out to 2030, what the coalition's perspective, and that's not only for the German side of the house, but if we talk in Europe to the nations, that's a perspective we have. And we look at it, what we see is we have to scale it out. There is on one hand, as you can see, and that's for sure, it will be by 2030 the same, saying, well, there's a common interest, common values, and we all stand together to defend those common interests and common values, of course. And from that, there derives the common operations. And if you look back what the experiences we have so far, it's a common standard, it's a common training, common exercises. And this is what we all, and it should be a discussion through all the allies and the states throughout, where we can improve and work together there. And I said it in the beginning already, one thing for sure, resources will always be a problem, and we are convinced it will not rise, it will decline. And on the other hand, what do you have? It's sovereignty. Well, we are from the other side of the Atlantic. Look at the European nations, 27 nations. And you heard that from your congressman on Monday already. Everybody's telling you we have to defend our own country, we look for our own industry. Yeah, you have to accept that. But on the other hand, you have to cooperate and you have to try to mitigate those things. Dual use, dual nature, same thing. When I listened to General Killer's speech where he said, well, we have weather satellites under the military command. We don't. Because all we need is assured access to the data. And basically, let me put it this way, we really, as long as we have assured access, we don't care as long as the contracts run and we get the data we need. And the other thing is, I told you, 27 nations out of Europe, the European Union, well, there is a national capability assessment. You have to go ahead and you have to bring everybody under one umbrella in order to succeed. Now, it's very easy to say that. The question is, what's the way forward? Well, for us, there's only one way forward. It's cooperation, cooperation, and cooperation. And what's the basement to that one? It's always easy to say, but I have to tell you, it's trust and reliability. You might say, wait, General, it's always easy to say, have trust and reliability, but I tell you, it's been proven before. I did spend quite some time out of my military life sitting on alert during the Cold War, trying to defend Western Europe. So, and by that time, if you look with the US forces, Canadian forces, British forces, everybody stationed throughout Europe and a lot of them stationed in Germany, all it was trust, it was standards, and we were sure that we were doing the right thing. And that might be an aspect also to think about how you go about the future if you talk about space. For the German side, if you talk about our security objectives for outer space, I divide it in first order and second order. I just explained to you, for us, it is of utmost importance that we look for the synergies between military and civilian space, and of course, research and development. Improve interagency coordination. What does I mean by that? Or what do I mean by that? For us, it is very important, like I said, from the beginning onward, that we come up with the capability requirements we have, that we coordinate them already throughout our government. We work very close with our Ministry of Economy and Technology, for instance, the guys from the Space Agency, DLR, they belong to them, they are around. So we, in the early stages, already discuss what capabilities are needed, and we go with cooperation from the civil and military side in order to achieve that one. Independent space situational awareness, same thing. We are in lead, but we have already embedded the civilian side of the house, so in order to do the service for the whole of our country. And I talked about strategic technologies and how to foster them. I guess that's self-explanatory. Second order, of course, for us, and I come back to what I said, if you want to foster trust and reliability, of course, you have to have some regulations, and we foresee that there should be space law or space regulations, especially if you look towards data policy, data security. All those things should and need to be coordinated somehow. And the last point there, promote international efforts. Just the panel before, the ambassador from the European nations, he just talked about the code of conduct and all those things. It's already been said. Now, in order to sum that up, well, how do we see strategies towards a better cooperation? Well, within Europe, there's a lot of technology, knowledge, and capabilities out there. All the nations have that. And of course, we have systems. So also, we just cannot afford that, having all systems within the military and everything and being independent to everybody else. We need to coordinate this very close. And the same thing goes with space situational awareness. You might be aware, if you've been to Germany and know the German military, we have our Space Situational Awareness Center in Kalkar, we have our National Air Defense Center in Kalkar, and we have a KAOK in Kalkar. So there we have already good examples how we work together and how we can share. And if I look at JSPOC ideas and all those things, there are a lot of ideas out there where we could come closer and work much closer together. And that's what we foresee. It's international cooperation for us, because otherwise we will not succeed. This is the view from our side, from a coalition's point of view. Those of you who might be familiar with this picture, it's the Brandenburger Tor in Berlin, one of our famous monuments. And if you walk down the way you see it, you walk down to the Victory Monument, and you might want to think about that idea. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks. Semmer?
Thank you, General. First of all, I'd like to thank the Space Foundation for inviting us here. 2012 has been a very good year for Thuraya, and a year where most of the industry players had either flat or declining revenues. We have actually recorded a good growth. We grew by 4%. The company, and if we take out the positive effects of the Arab Spring in 2011, we would have grown by 9%. So it was a good year for us. We continued in 2012 to put a lot of investment into our network and into the security aspects of our network. We have a strong upgrade path for different elements of our network, and we have continued as well developing our product portfolio, not only the product, but also the services and the solutions, bringing more products to the market. One thing that happened also in 2012 was a reshuffle of our board of directors, where we have added more capabilities, and I think some of you have heard about the joining of Eric Béranger, who's the CEO of Astrium Satellites, of our board very recently. We also have put together an advisory council to look at the future and our next generation capabilities that we need to start looking at. So we put that together, and we have started meetings with them. On the product side, as I said, we have continued developing our product portfolio, but also our relationships with mobile operators around the world. We are in a unique position to offer roaming with terrestrial networks. We have over 350 roaming partners, the last of which is AT&T, which we signed up recently. And we also have engaged with companies like SoftBank Mobile, which is a top mobile operator in Japan, and they're in the process of acquiring Sprint. We have engaged with them on an operational and strategic level. This is a cooperation that probably is the first of its kind between the mobile satellite world and the mobile terrestrial world. Our focus as a company has been on innovation, and we have just launched a very innovative product, which we believe is going to be a game changer, not only from the technology part of it, but from the business model part of it. And this is something that we believe the industry could benefit from, is more innovation in the business models. So I would like to show you a short video on the product.
A world's first. The Thuraya SatSleeve brings you the perfect blend of mobility and simplicity by combining innovation with a sleek and elegant form factor that supports the remote communication needs of all iPhone users. It's easy to use. Simply insert your iPhone into the SatSleeve to instantly get mobile satellite connection through phone calls and SMS in over 140 countries across Thuraya's satellite footprint. Thuraya's high-powered satellites enable full walk and talk capability. Thuraya is also the only operator that offers mobile and satellite coverage even in the most remote areas. You can talk longer too. Thuraya Sat Sleeve comes with a built-in battery pack that extends the life of your iPhone. It's also equipped with a dedicated emergency call button, allowing you to make a phone call to a predefined number even without your iPhone docked. With the Thuraya Sat Sleeve, your iPhone is transformed into a satellite phone, ready to meet the world. Thuraya Sat Sleeve. Expand your iPhone's horizons. Thuraya, stay close.
Thank you. And on a last note, Matt Dash is not here today so we cannot taunt him about his Ohio State not making it to the finals,
right.
But we'll do that next year.
Thanks, Emmer. Very good. Certainly an important addition to the mobile satellite services capabilities. So next, Rupert Pearce, sir.
Thank you, General. Well, I think what you're looking for from us in the course of the next few minutes is a coalition perspective on a lot of the issues that we've been talking about at the conference over the last couple of days. And I completely agree with Brigadier General Badia that many of the issues that you have in your hearts are the same elsewhere in the world. And from the coalition perspective, coalition governments are just as concerned about national space policy and national space security policy as the US, and many of the same issues are being grappled with. In the coalition environment, we're just as worried about global congestion and contention and competition for space assets, especially orbital slots and spectrum, as the US is. And just as in the US, we have increasing concerns in coalition governments about resiliency, about security, and about the availability of space requirements. I think Brigadier General Badia focused on that very, very clearly. And just as you are in the US, coalition governments are looking to answer some of those questions by embedding and enhancing a relationship with the commercial space sector as part of their national space policies. So there's a lot of commonality there, and the themes are very largely the same, which I think bodes well for international cooperation around space assets and space policy, and towards a better definition of interoperability, a more effective interoperability. So looking at Inmarsat and our business and what we do, I thought it would be quite helpful to look at it through a specific lens. In his keynote speech, General Shelton earlier this week referred to 3 key attributes for the commercial space industry in meeting the needs of government. And he talked about capability, affordability, and resiliency. And he was very clear that the government's sweet spot is where those 3 things intersect. And we at Inmarsat completely agree with that analysis. And for us in the commercial space sector, being in that sweet spot has never been more important, because this is a crucial time, I think, over the next, perhaps the next decade, for the commercial space industry to meet the needs of our government customers in an extremely agile and effective way. So I thought I'd just very quickly look at Inmarsat through that lens. So we look at capability. The story for Inmarsat is that we spent more than $3 billion over the last few years on innovative space segment, and that has dramatically enhanced our capabilities, and the Global Express video you saw just before the start of this session pays tribute to that. So we have 2 generations, Inmarsat 4. That generation supports really unique mobile satellite capabilities. Sam had talked eloquently about their very innovative Sat Sleeve for voice services. We're very much more focused on data applications. But with services like BGAN, Fleet Broadband, Swift Broadband, we've brought highly agile data services to the world, which are very relevant for government. And with new generation of services like the LTAC service, which provides UHF enhancement and extension for government radios, we've shown the agility of that network. Inmarsat 5, which will start to launch from the end of this year, the service is called Global Express. That brings a revolution in global capacity and capabilities, especially for government. We're moving into Ka band. We're offering a 50 megabit per second service to the commercial sector. We can take that up many multiples in the government sector, and for the first time, we are essentially hosting a military Ka-band capability as well that is fully fungible with deployed military systems. A very exciting innovation. So we're among the leading innovators in satellite communications today. So secondly, looking at affordability, this is an area where we've done a huge amount of work. One of the most interesting things about Inmarsat and about Thuraya is that we come with a very different mindset to our government customers. We're mobile operators, and it's very important to appreciate the difference that brings. We're very used to taking an if we build it, they will come approach. We don't require our customers to pre-commit to us. They can buy their service where they want it, when they want it, and they get a quality of service that's global, or in the case of Thuraya, multi-regional. That is beginning to translate into a key competitive differentiator in our relationship with government because it enables us to be very, very agile and to deliver services in a more efficient way than the traditional FSS model. We're also very efficient because both of our organizations deliver a full end-to-end network as well. So we deliver your bits, your communications to your door, meaning that you can access global transportable QoS, quality of service, as well. And even a managed service should you desire not to do the integration all the way through to the end of your network. Those are very different things and very important things in the context of the challenges governments face going forward. We've also focused a lot on delivering value for money. And of course, you've always got to do that, but it's in an era of budget constraint, that becomes more and more important. So whilst our standard services are bought on demand or leased, we've had lots of pricing innovation, assured access, packages that provide bandwidth that can be shared among communities so that you can all, if one part of your community is not using a service, you can move the bandwidth to a group that is, allowing another level of efficiency and agility in deploying effective satellite services in a cost-effective way. And of course, with Global Express, for the first time, we're actually bringing steerable beams into the equation as well, so that you can now take a military KA capability with you as you pivot to different parts of the world. The service pivots with you in a very agile way. So I think on affordability, we've got a lot of innovation going on as well. The third area, resiliency, is perhaps the most important because mission assurance is key. We're, of course, used at Inmarsat to mission-critical levels of service because we're the only provider of the world's global maritime distress and safety system. We save, on average, a life a day at sea through that system that's provided free of charge to the world's maritime industry. So we were born with a mandate for mission-critical services that have to work when you need them, and that cascades through our very DNA in terms of everything that we do. We offer very high levels of space segment redundancy. We have 10 satellites today. That will grow to 12 satellites by the end of the year, and that will increase again at the end of the decade when we bring Inmarsat 6 into the world as well. That space segment redundancy, which is unique in a mobile satellite environment, means that you can be assured that even if there is an issue on a satellite, your service will still be maintained. We invest increasingly in cyber resilience as well to ensure our architecture is as robust and secure as possible. Everybody suffers cyber attacks continuously these days. These cyber attacks make no discrimination for whether you're a governmental organization or a commercial organization, and we know that our customers expect the highest standards in cyber resiliency. And our next generation networks will be up to Mach 1 compliant and will be among the most secure networks on the planet. I think it's the third area that's most interesting, which is seeking greater interoperability with government systems, because of course through interoperability you offer not just alternatives to government, but you actually allow government to bring you through as a backup to their services to give them that level of security they need. Because we're global, truly global, we can offer interoperability uniquely across the whole globe. In L-band, we have a very open network that is receptive to military-grade encryption. We have open architectures for our user terminals, and through lease structures, we offer support even for military waveforms and proprietary waveforms to be used across our network. And of course, in a solutions context, we're an IP-based network, so we make it very easy for people to move solutions across our network. And for a data services company, it's all about the solution. It's the solution that delivers the value. The connectivity simply empowers the solution. And obviously, finally, with Global Express, we're looking at something that truly is interoperable. With the military Ka-band capability merely requires existing terminals in the field to repoint and are completely fungible with the WGS program and the Athena Feeders program, for example. And our commercial Ka capability, OPS, is a global underlay or overlay, if you like, to regional military and commercial Ka capabilities deployed by governments. So exceptional resiliency. Looking ahead very briefly to the rest of the year for Inmarsat, the most exciting news is the launch of our first Global Express satellite, the Boeing manufactured Inmarsat 5 F1. That will be out before the end of the year, and that begins the Global Express era. The world's first global seamless super broadband network, delivering, by the way, 15 gigahertz of commercial Ka-band globally and 12 gigahertz of military Ka-band globally. That's more than is flown in aggregate today around the world, giving rise to a fully synchronized, integrated end-to-end network built from the ground up for quality, capacity, and availability. So I think looking ahead and looking at General Shelton's characterization of what we need to do to remain relevant to serve our government customers, we see ourselves as being uniquely capable, highly resilient and interoperable, and we intend to be eminently affordable. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'd like to thank all of our three panel members for excellent introductions here, and I'd like to move to a few questions here that some are coming in, and we've prepared some ahead of time just in case so we could touch some important points. I'd like to start with Mr. Pearce here. Rupert, based on your impressions and certainly from General Shelton's speech, the 3 points he made, and thank you for reiterating those. I would add one, visibility to what the U.S. really requires in terms of cooperation when it needs to purchase services. And you mentioned agile delivery, and a question from the audience was, you know, how agile is the U.S. government in buying services, and how does that influence, you know, how you do your business? I mean, are the U.S. military and the U.S. structure, is it capable of being flexible enough to meet your agile requirements?
Well, I think agility is a two-way street. We're talking about a business relationship between the commercial world, the commercial space environment, and government. And to be effective, we need a good dialogue. That's the first stepping point for this. Because if we have a good dialogue with our government customers, we understand their needs, their requirements, we can build for that. I mean, that's the relationship we have with our commercial customers. We talk all the time to them, and we invest in next generation networks to satisfy their needs. And if we can have that kind of open and engaged relationship with government, we can do the same for our government customers as well. That enables us to be agile in meeting their needs, and enables them to prepare to be more agile in using the capacity that we build for them. And that's the kind of two-way street I'm talking about. I think with Inmarsat, because we don't insist that the government fits within any particular box, you don't have to come and pre-buy a transponder in a particular part of the world for us to build a satellite. You know, we put down $1.2 billion on Inmarsat 5, which we know will probably have, is turning out to have great interest from government customers. We did that on our own dollar because we could understand where the needs were going, and we built ahead of them. And we'd like to continue to do that. Having done that, obviously you're talking about potentially billions of dollars saved in terms of proprietary infrastructure that doesn't have to get built. And then we can have a more agile relationship about where and when and how the customer wants to buy. The obvious subtext of the question, though, is there enough flexibility in the way the government can buy under prevailing procurement policies? And I would say the one area which probably requires a bit more looking at, is the ability for government to make multi-year commitments, to buy in bulk, if you like. That doesn't stop the purchase being agile in the context of a global operator relationship, but my commercial customers get great discounts for making multi-year commitments. It's very common for some of our larger customers to make 2, 3, 4, 5-year commitments to a particular relationship with us. Because that generates revenue, predictable revenues for a commercial company, commercial companies are happy to give discounts for that. And I sometimes think that our government customers find it more difficult to have that. And we try to work on synthetic arrangements of getting close to that, which gives them some of the benefits, but probably not all of the benefits.
Yeah. Thank you for that answer. I'd like to ask Samer to comment on that. And you're a regional operator, and you've seen more government, I think, add to your list of customers. How's that changed your planning and your profiles in that environment?
Well, we think of our company as an international operator. We cover 2/3 of the globe by satellite and the full globe basically on the terrestrial side with roaming agreements. As a company over the last 2 years, we've been increasingly focused on the government customer. Now, how do we do this? Well, first of all, we believe that maybe the government customer has not had many alternatives in the past. So we believe that there needs to be alternatives for both voice and data in order to make sure that there's good value for the customer. So what we first did is we invested in a team of people, and a team of highly skilled people, and they have the experience in the government sector. And their approach is to first understand the requirements of the government customer and then build the solutions, the customized solutions that are good for the customer. A lot of those solutions are security solutions, encryption. Rupert mentioned encryption and other things that special government customers want. So we've been working to provide that. We've been working to, of course, make our network more capable from an information assurance point of view. Products that are interesting for the government. You need products with walk and talk capability, for example, in the voice. We have strong IP products, and by the way, we grew our IP business. We grew our subscribers by 60% last year. So we have a lot of work on the IP, and we provide them with products, for example, that can work in any environment, whether it's a vehicular environment or a fixed environment or a portable environment. So we give them features that work, and we focus on innovation, not only in the products, but also in the business model for the customer and the pricing. We understand that there's government customers that have different needs for pricing, and they require flexibility. Some of them want unlimited capability at fixed prices, and we offer that. We offer that because we are able to put 20% of the power of one satellite. We can do dynamic resource allocation, so that allows us not to suffer from congestion. And the nature of the satellite industry is that you have a lot of targeted demand and surge in traffic and whenever there's an event. So we are able to offer fixed pricing. We're able to offer very affordable and value prices without compromising on quality, but also different structures. So as a result, we've been engaged with probably over 30 different government entities over the last year and a half, most of NATO, increasingly with the US DoD. Of course, we've been serving them on the BFT, Blue Force Tracking system, for a while, on the BFT1, and we hope also to contribute even more with better value and more capabilities, technical capabilities on the BFT2 as well.
Okay. General Badia, the availability of satellite connectivity is important, certainly in strategic planning, and I know that in your presentation you talked about the importance of planning and independence on commercial. I mean, how significantly and how deep do you get into making sure that when you do an operation or you're part of a coalition that the connectivity will be there? What backup planning, any kinds of special planning considerations for operations in that environment?
Well, what I explained before already is when you're geared towards cooperation from the beginning onwards, if you look into European Union and into NATO, there is where the standardization comes from. So it's nothing new for us. We do this business since 60 years. in former days with older weapon systems now, but it's the same principle. If you look onto satellite communication, for instance, we only, as the German Armed Forces, we possess 2 communication satellites. And you can imagine it depends on the operations we are doing, be it down in Afghanistan, Kosovo, or wherever. So a lot of times it's not enough, our own capability we have, and therefore we are reliant from the beginning onwards on coalition operations and much more on a commercial provider. So for us, first of all, from a strategic or from an operational planning point of view, we come up with the requirements, and I just can confirm what Mr. Rupert said before. The commercial industry is very flexible in going against our requirements and coming up with their solutions to it. This is one point, and the other point is, of course, we are sharing our capabilities, and the other European nations, US as well, is sharing theirs. But the standardization itself, so comes through all the boards and bodies we have in NATO. So it's common business for us, and therefore we are on a good ground there.
Thank you. One of the things I'd like to, and we've got a good question about that, is to delve into with both Thuraya and Inmarsat, and then Christian, you and I, from a military perspective, can take a look at that as well. But one of the things in times of stress, and communications are critical to reacting to a particular issue, problem, or some set of circumstances. What we find in our wargaming that we've done on the U.S. side, with the coalition support, of course, is that some of the early indicators of stress and oncoming stress will be some perhaps jamming of communications, and some insidious kinds of problems start to emerge. Now, how do you feel about sharing that kind of information with your coalition partners, so someone can tie all the connect the dots on somebody's messing with my system, maybe something's occurring or is going to occur. This falls into the area of space situational awareness. Each of you monitor your constellation, understand what's going on. I mean, how critical is it to your operation to be able to and be the resilient and the kind of capability we need to share that kind of information? Is that something you find you'd be able to do?
Sure. I mean, we already do some of that today. It's, there's a lot of events in our business. Now, there's multiple ways to look at this. For us, when we budget and we plan at the beginning of the year, we don't plan on events. We plan on a standard and normal business. So we are able to cater to the events as an extra element. When there are events, there's a surge in traffic, so there's possibilities of congestion. This is where we feel that we have our dynamic resource allocation ensures that there's assured access to the system. Now, interoperability is very important, so we provide services like netted comms. We are bringing things like this sleeve that really is doing some interoperability between coalition forces, because you have the same interface now that is used for the same with one technology. We are also looking at software-defined radio to do some of this. The third element is the hacking and the interference, and we've been, all of us have been subject to a lot of this over the last few years. Libya was a big factor. It was actually two weeks, I think, after I joined Thuraya that we got majorly jammed by the Libyan, that was actually putting some stress on our satellite, on the full satellite. And there was a lot of collaboration with some of the coalition forces in order to get that problem alleviated, if you will, in a certain way. And we've been also subject to interference quite a bit from Syria. And we have developed an internal skill base that is strong enough to be able to defend against all of this, and we feel that we're in a very good position to do so. But in terms of the collaboration, I think that does exist today, not maybe to the level that it could. I think maybe organizations like the Space Foundation could play a role in bringing all the operators together, or the coalition forces and the operators together to just tackle this point. We talked about this, I think, a year and a half ago at the satellite show, but really nothing progressed from that. It was just a discussion. But it would be good for someone to take that on and move that forward. We'd be happy to contribute more.
Okay. Rupert?
Well, I agree with everything Sam has said. Like him, I mean, I think it's bare saying that mobile satellite operators are used to dealing with changes in their traffic and the unpredictability of that traffic. Where you are managing congestion on a wet Monday morning in Malacca Straits, you'll be doing it on a Thursday somewhere else, and so on. And we've got very, very well-developed systems to deal with people moving across our networks, because we're a mobile network. The Thuraya network and the Inmarsat 4 network deal with that by having incredible agility in terms of the ability with which we can move power and bandwidth around our network, so that if an event happens, like a Haiti earthquake or a Japan tsunami or something like that, we can rush capacity there really very much in real time to support what are two very good examples of coalition efforts, by the way. Global Express is different. It does contain that kind of capability, but actually we deliberately built steerable beams on top of the Global Express global coverage to give us an extra ability to meet demand. And we can move 1.6 gigahertz of capacity immediately over an event, should there be something like that. So there's sort of an overlay. It's a different way of dealing with the same problem. If you look at the communities, I agree absolutely with Sama. I think the coalition governments do operate as communities. There are many, many examples of that, from NATO to WGS to so many different examples, and we fit right in there when we're supporting their needs. I think the commercial community, space community, operates very well as a community as well. The space situational awareness, the work done on space debris is a very, very good example of that. And I think, as an outsider coming in from many years outside the space industry, I've been very struck by the willingness of competitors to collaborate around issues of common concern, like spectrum, orbital slots, space debris, and jamming is another example of that. And when there is a jamming event, as Sama and I experienced in Libya and in Syria recently, there is communication between the different participants. We don't take pleasure in a competitor suffering jamming, and we work on behalf of the industry to help each other surmount it. The only thing I'd say about jamming is it is very, very specific, because it's very geographically specific, and actually it affects different satellite networks in different ways. So there aren't always coalition or collaborative solutions at work. But we're getting there, and I think the industry as a whole is doing pretty well.
Well, a follow-on question then, in that respect, because I think it's very important to kind of probe this a little bit more, but is that a slippery slope to talk about your capabilities in an environment where, how much do you reveal to your competitor? Because obviously this is a competitive business. It's also a cooperative business, but you want to maintain your specific company's technical edge, et cetera. So, how do you gauge that? Is that something that bothers you day to day or not?
It doesn't bother me day to day, because I think we've got a very clear sense for where these lines are. Something like space debris. Everybody wants to make sure that we're sharing information on space debris, and we're taking action to keep our precious space assets out of the way of space debris. There's a commonality of purpose there. It sits above our fundamental competition. I think there's a clear example. Sharing the heart of our innovation in terms of our architecture for satellite networks and so on is obviously a place we wouldn't go, because it's a different level of competition. And when you get closer to that, and jamming is a good example of that, I think the discussions we have around jamming are less about the intricacies of how our networks are affected by them, and more about, are you experiencing jamming too? Yes, you are. Is it here? What? And then we can take common action in terms of addressing the existence of someone out there who's doing something illegal. So I think we don't cross that line. But having said that, we all take pleasure in the fact that the world's satellite manufacturers work for all of us, and we all benefit from that. And there is a certain tension there but it's nice that when you walk into a major satellite operator or a launch provider, you're working with someone who's worked with a number of operators and learned a lot from that experience.
Samer?
Well, I don't have much to add on this, except that I mentioned, I think, a year and a half ago that perhaps we can invest jointly in F-16 to combat jamming sites.
Yeah. Well, we dealt with jamming and Operation Iraqi Freedom and with GPS jamming, for instance. And jamming is a particular issue with respect to the hard part about doing something about it is, one, finding out it occurs, and number two is then, okay, where it's coming from and how do you attribute to a particular place or location or a particular capability. So sharing that kind of information, I think, could lead to some success, and I appreciate your follow-up on that and why, we talk about this, but why don't we do something about it? So that'll be a good lesson learned from this. Christian?
If I just may add one thing from our military perspective, the technical aspect, absolutely right, but the human aspect to it. From our point of view, we invest, of course, in our people, in the guys who are on the space career track, because it's more important understanding the environment. You have to invest in that. And then when are you knowing really that you are intercepted, that there is jamming out there, that that you are blinded by lasers or whatever. So this is a point we take up, and we take it very seriously, looking how we structure the career paths of our space officers for the future. That's where we think we have to invest quite a lot.
Yeah, of course, this is all a good example of the maturation of space-based assets at a strategic level, which Christian talked about just now. And of course, what that drives is the enemy's response to that. And what now we need to do is think about ways in which we can be more powerful in our countermeasures.
I think it's important because some of the subtle indicators of times of stress are often first noted in the space environment, and we've got to be able to do a better job, I think. And I'm pleased to know that. And I'm sure General Shelton and others are working this very hard, but it's important to share that information. Question from the audience for you, Samer, is the SAT sleeve available in the United States? Does it work on the roaming agreements? And can I call my girlfriend?
It depends whether you're married or not. I think it is available in the United States. It's not available in satellite mode, obviously, because so far we don't have a satellite over the US. We're looking into that, but it is available for roaming under AT&T or T-Mobile.
Mm-hmm. Could you say a little bit more about how that connectivity works between the sleeve and the iPhone? And I know they did a pretty good job in the little quick video, but you might hold your phone up there and just tend to show them a little bit.
Yeah, it's basically not more than a satellite phone without a keypad or a screen, where the iPhone becomes the keypad or the screen, which allows people to just use their familiar interface that they're used to. So if people want the standard rugged satellite phone, they can opt for one of our other satellite phones. But if they want the usual interface where they have their contacts, that they have on the iPhone, they just plug it in and it communicates with the dock station, which also gives it more power, and it allows them to make phone calls. The technology behind this is not spectacular. It's just taking a satellite phone, taking out some pieces of it and connecting it to the iPhone and building an app on the iPhone. The interesting thing here is the business model that could come out of this. And this could allow many more users, many more market segments that have not had today the privilege of having satellite connectivity have something like this. And especially in an environment where, Rupert mentioned the earthquake in Japan and the natural disasters and, of course, the Arab Spring, that a lot of more people are today aware of the need to have satellite connectivity. They don't use it as much. We don't benefit from a lot of airtime, but there's many more people that are interested in having this. And as a result, we signed probably the first agreement between a mobile terrestrial operator and a mobile satellite operator, which is SoftBank Mobile of Japan, because they want to serve their terrestrial operators with devices like this. They want to give them an add-on capability in times of natural disasters.
Another question which is important, I think, in this, certainly in this context, and I'd ask Rupert to respond to this because I read your, and we mentioned this briefly before, read your little article, or I believe it was an interview when you were quoted about the growth in the mobile satellite services business, 11% overall, and then 25% in the data. Would you say a little bit more about why data is becoming so more important and the uses that really fulfills for users out there?
Sure. We're actually seeing tremendous growth in every part of our data services, from what we consider broadband services all the way through to machine-to-machine applications and services as well, which are moving bytes, not megabytes. I think we just live in a world where people communicate via data. They send texts, not voice calls. They send emails instead of calling and so on. And increasingly, we live in a world where applications and solutions that require broadband connectivity are at the epicenter of an enterprise's efficiency and effectiveness. We look at every single community we serve, where our fundamental goal, our role, is to empower a solutions environment for those customers. The reason our maritime business is growing so quickly is because we've brought to the maritime community a broadband unit that is small, cheap, can go on their ships and be installed, and is incredibly robust and resilient to weather and to the yawing and movement of a ship in some pretty harsh environments. That's great so far. What it delivers is a broadband experience. And of course, then instead of thinking of a ship as something that disappears over the horizon and that's it, now it's a floating node on a corporate network. And once it's a floating node on a corporate network, you can start to push the intelligence of your network out to the edge to the ship itself. And that has profound implications for the profitability of that enterprise. Instead of putting engineers on the ship, you keep them at headquarters and you do tele-engineering. You do telemedicine as well. You keep your crew retained and happier because you give them connectivity, social networking, and so on. So now your ship doesn't have to stay longer in harbor. You put sensors on your engines, so you can tell when bits of your engines are going to fail, not discover after the event and limp into the nearest harbor. So when you get to port, you replace a failing part as opposed to a failed part. These have profound implications for any enterprise. And finally, of course, with weather information being streamed on board, together with smart applications that produce smart routing, you can save, it's now been proven, up to 10% of your fuel bill on your average container ship. Those are massive, massive changes to the operational efficiency of a maritime environment, and they're all driven by solutions that are empowered by connectivity. And that is, at the absolute foundation of why our business is growing.
Comment on that?
Yeah, well, Rupert covered the maritime bit. On the land side of things, everybody today is connected, and everybody, wherever you go now, you expect to have internet connectivity and email and access to corporate networks. And, it so happens that GSM, although it's growing, the data part of GSM is not growing as fast. And people are just used to it, and we have to cater to them. And whether it's media broadcasting from places where they want to have a terminal that is as small as an iPad, where they can run with it, without having to worry about their safety. Or we had a journalist come talk to our partners during our partner conference about a month ago, and she was in Syria, and she had her Thuraya IP terminal by the window, and she was broadcasting from inside the room, and she felt quite more comfortable than having a big dish and a van. And it's so you have that industry. Of course, the government user is a important heavy user of data. Now you have your flight plan that is downloaded to your vehicle wherever you are. It's it's all technology driven. It's you need those solutions available to you. So the growth for us in data has been phenomenal.
But the same is true in the air as well. I mean, Sam had dealt with the land. The final environment is the air, and we're seeing incredible growth, 35% growth year on year in our aero revenues, driven by a demand for bandwidth onto aircraft, not just in a government context for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, but we're seeing broadband to the cockpit, electronic flight bags, and of course, increasingly a connected aircraft. People are beginning to demand that their aircraft has Wi-Fi when they travel. You look at what Emirates and Cathay and Singapore and United and so many airlines are now, they have a connectivity strategy. And Global Express obviously delivers a true browsing experience to those aircraft and looks like the future for that. But it's emblematic of people's demand to be connected all the time wherever they are. And once they get it, then they're hooked and that they can't do without it, and they start to use it more and more and more. I was very amused when I went to an executive jet airport recently, and I was told that the two needs these guys had. First of all, they demanded video conferencing on their executive jet. Now, I thought that was quite amusing because I remember being told that video conferencing would stop us all ever having to travel by airplane ever again. So now the killer app is video conferencing on a plane. The other thing I was told was that these guys had a major problem because we could connect them with Swift broadband through the flight. Then they would land, and then, of course, they didn't want to get in a car. They were then flown in a helicopter. This is into London. And when they were in London, they had connectivity, but they didn't have connectivity for that crucial 20 minutes between landing on the helicopter. And so the question I had from the customer was, when are you going to come up with your helicopter waveform, which fortunately is arriving later this year? But it tells you everything you need to know. These guys won't have 20 minutes of downtime. They have to be connected all the time.
Yeah, but that's a problem. I mean, I'm very upset at my friends at Inmarsat because now they have connectivity on Emirates Airlines. So not only we cannot watch movies anymore because we have to work, we're also contributing to their revenues.
Right. Well, those darned customers, and certainly those people flying on airplanes, they just want more and more. What I think is fascinating about this, and certainly I'd like for your comments, but I think what we've seen in the information revolution is certainly a kind of turning the procurement model on its head. We've really got a commercial activity that's very vibrant and very agile and capable with the cost structure to support it.
Yeah.
And so the changes can be made quickly if you can see the return that will be generated, as opposed to a government model, which we will continue to follow for specific circumstances for protected comm and the kind of ISR satellites that need to be done. But what you've got is, you can't make a case the other way where you would spend all the non-recurring engineering dollars to build a military system, then go out and figure out a commercial application for that. So it doesn't work the same kind of way, and adaptable and flexible. And I think that's what we see with mobile satellite services, certainly, and other kinds of capabilities. I'd ask you to comment on that as well. Do you think that's a truism?
I think it's true. Obviously, commercial satellite programs only meet some of the needs of governments. There are some needs that require proprietary programs. That's for obvious reasons. Nuclear hardened, for example. But yeah, the pace at which commercial decisions can get made is because we're free of, we're making decisions, and only we are making decisions. I mean, we took the decision to do Global Express in 2010. That was a $1.2 billion decision. And here we are approaching the middle of 2013, and we're weeks away from the first satellite launch, and we will be fully global before the end of next year. So that's end-to-end, roughly 4 years, for a global multi-billion-dollar program that will be transformative. So yeah, there is a difference there. But there are very few commercial space companies that can make that kind of investment, particularly over that kind of period. One of the things that's very important when you're looking for resiliency and dependability as a government customer is look at your provider. Are they able to reinvent their network during the tenure of your relationship with them? Look at their leverage levels. Are they profitable? These are important things because access to capital in our industry isn't straightforward, and it takes billions of dollars to stay in business. So that's not to say that the commercial industry has it all its own way, but when we have access to capital, we can deploy that capital pretty quickly, and that's very attractive. I think the other thing that's coming to the fore here is the value of being global, or at least multi-regional, because that's what delivers the coverage that allows interoperability, the ability to deal with communities in an agile way. And without that, it's very hard to be to deliver that agility that you're talking about.
Any comment?
I think I agree with what Rupert is saying. We as satellite industry, commercial satellite industry, we are investing in our capabilities without, asking the government for commitments. And but what we do is we give them access to this infrastructure anytime they need it and immediately. Of course, Rupert mentioned if there's longer-term contracts, that helps as well, giving more value to the customer while giving more predictability. But there was a discussion the other day about budgetary uncertainty, and a lot of people were saying that that's a major problem. For us, we don't see it that way. For us, we're investing irrespective whether there's uncertainty or not, and whenever there's a need to provide capacity, we do this. I think what would help a little bit more is if we had more standardization in our business. Because when you have multiple different infrastructures, then each entity is going out there and launching their own capacity and their own systems that are not necessarily, they don't work with each other. So you have capacity all of a sudden in space, and now there's multiple systems coming in terms of next generation. We haven't planned ours yet, but there's multiple systems coming out, and there might be overcapacity in space. And then what do you do with it? And how do you try to get the return on your investment? And is that going to disturb the whole industry? So if there was more standardization, probably we would be using less infrastructure, and the operators would be more focused on the value-added services and the solutions to the end users rather than on building infrastructure. And I think that the terrestrial industry is doing more of that now, where they're looking at infrastructure sharing, and there's more MVNO type models who are coming out and giving really good solutions and pricing to the end users, so everybody wins. Because it's difficult when you have too much infrastructure to totally de-risk, and this is where you start asking for pre-commitments. For us, as a company right now, we're at a stage where we're looking to build our next generation capabilities, or we're looking to do that. The first thing we're doing right now is we're looking at alliances. What are the different possible alliances that we can do with people who have infrastructure or who will have infrastructure in the future, instead of going and launching more capacity that could, create some capacity glut in space. That doesn't help anyone. Doesn't help us, doesn't help our shareholders, doesn't help the other guys. So we're looking at alliances as a first step. But most importantly, we're looking at trends and applications. What does the end user need in 10 and 15 years down the road? We don't want to launch a satellite system that is based on technology from 1995. I mean, that was to serve customers in 1999 and in 2002, not today, certainly not in 10 years. But again, if there was a bit more standardization, and maybe Space Foundation as an association that can help drive something like this for the future, of course, not today, but for the future, that would be really helpful.
Christian, any comment from?
Well, very interesting to hear, because in the military world, if you go with alliances, that's exactly what we're going to do. And that just was, as Sama talked, I don't know what your system in the States is, but it's throughout Europe. Concerning electricity, you have an exchange, like a stock exchange on an electricity market. And that might help if you have an overarching organization, and now you have a market, and you have capabilities and capacities on the satellite market. Somebody needs to manage that and then bring it to the market. And that comes back, if you all agree to the same standards and the good cooperation, then that might be a way forward.
Of course, and it creates scale, and it creates ability to do things much cheaper.
A question came, what requirements for security and encryption do you seek from your providers, or how do you handle those kinds of questions? And do you accept provider capabilities, or do you impose your own encryption kinds of schema?
Well, we have increasingly invested in secure solutions, encryption and discrete type SIMs, and others over the last couple of years. So we provide those, but we also right now are investing a lot in software-defined radio so that the end user can plug in their own encryption very easily into our devices. And we're very careful how we deal with this. We are a UAE based company. Of course, the relationship between the UAE and the US has never been better than it is today. It's improving. Our focus is mainly on coalition and NATO forces, and of course, GCC environment. So we don't provide those solutions, very widely. We're very careful on who we provide this to. But we offer both, our own and end user solutions.
Rupert?
Well, we tend to buy off the shelf security capabilities because there are a lot of companies out there that know a great deal more about security than we do. Whether we're talking about resilience against cyber attack or whether we're talking about encryption of command and control of the satellites or the support to a highly secure environment across our network. And we're very happy to avail ourselves of that capability. We clearly know a great deal about how to make our networks secure, but there are people out there who do that for a living, and that's where we're focused. But I agree with Sama. Mission assurance and security generally in all its forms is incredibly important, not just, I would stress, not just for our government customers, but for all of our customers. If you're the chief executive of British Petroleum, you're just as interested in making sure your information doesn't go astray across your Gulf microwave networks as you are if you're a government customer.
Earlier this week, I believe it was an opening ceremony, Elliot Pullum talked about the space report, the 2013 space report, and talked about worldwide revenues from space and mentioned a term about $310 billion. And if you look kind of at that pie chart in the document, you'll see that not a small percentage, but maybe 20-25% of that 310 billion is really satellites and rockets. The rest is command and control and the exploitation of space-derived goods and services, meaning communications capabilities and things. Well, it's important for us, and certainly this is a subject that's come up before, is how do you lower the cost of access to space, which you all have to, pay the freight, so to speak, when you fly your satellites into space. And one of the issues at this forum, and I don't want to go into detail, but I'd just like to get a quick thought from you about what you think about hosted payloads, and will that kind of aspect quickly catch on, or concerns about disaggregation of the payloads on a particular space mission lead to more congestion and debris in space? I leave that question for you, and then we'll take a couple minutes to answer that, and then I'd ask each of our panelists to kind of have a quick summary, and then we'll close out, and everybody can go have lunch, okay? So, hosted payloads, Samer.
We're looking at this, like I said, we're right now looking at the next generation. What do we do next? And alliances is our first, and hosted payload is a form of an alliance. So we're looking at this. It's not necessarily very simple to do a hosted payload because of the different requirements. Again, because there's not much standardization. But it's something that we're definitely looking at. I think to reduce the cost of access to space, we have to look a little bit at the procurement policies. And I think General Badia was talking a little bit how they do the things in Germany, but we really need to make some changes here. We need to make some changes first, and you have to build a strategy first before you start on the procurement. And once you before you build a strategy, you have to go into discussion with commercial operators. Whether there's a fact that the government-owned programs are going to be on hold or are going to be delayed or will need complementarity from the commercial side. So those discussions should happen in order to build a strategy. And once you build a strategy, then the procurement has to be built on that strategy. And then the procurement officers need to be incentivized on the success of the program, not on the success of the process, which is often the case today. So I think we need to make some changes in this. We also need to centralize some of the procurement, because when you have multiple entities buying on the spot from different providers and in different ways, it's just there's no efficiency in this. So those are some of the things that we need to do to reduce the cost of access to space.
I don't know. I mean, we look at the cost of putting something in space all the time, and we try and figure out how on earth we can keep launching more capable satellites more cheaply. Like any communications industry, each successive network has to beat the pants off the previous one. It has to be, 10 times more capable, 20 times more capacity, and the same price or less. So our cost to bit launched has to keep going down, because that's what our customers expect, and we rack our brains to do that. I actually think we're in something of a reasonable position there today. If you've got a satellite that's 6 tons or less, I think you've got a pretty competitive environment. Your access to capital has probably never been better, given Exim Bank and COFAS involvement. They're offering 3.5% to 5% money for 12 years. Well, that's pretty good access to capital, and they'll pretty much give that to anyone. You don't have to be a multi-billion-dollar company like ours to get access to that. You can be a much smaller company. I think you've got reasonable competition in the manufacturing market, with Boeing back in the market as looking to be 50% commercial. That's a big move in the market. Astrium, Loral, others, Lockheed, very fierce competitors as well. I'd love to see more rocket choice, but I think over the next decade we will see more rocket choice. Possibility of ULA coming back. We've got SpaceX, we've got others. It's not too bad. The principal problem I face is what happens if at the moment there's no rocket to launch a 12-ton satellite. So how do I get that extra capacity and capability on the satellite? And that forces us towards innovation, not around the size of the satellite or the complexity of the satellite, but actually around how we mobilize the inherent power and bandwidth capabilities of that satellite in real time in a more agile way, because that translates into more efficiency. That's where we're focused probably for the foreseeable future. On hosted payloads, yeah, great idea. We look at hosting and we look at being hosted pretty much all the time. We haven't done a deal like that yet in a commercial context, but it's certainly doable. I think it's more difficult when you're trying to put government programs and commercial programs together for a hosted payload, whichever way around you're going to do it, although obviously everyone thinks about it as hosting a government payload. And that's simply because you've got so many issues that you have to come to agreement on. Power, space, cost sharing, all of those things are issues anyway. They're more difficult when you've got a government program alongside you. But the single most difficult thing is time. And making a government program, hosted or otherwise, fit within a commercial program is very, very difficult to do. And no one yet, I think, has really found the answer to that.
As long as it's successful, right?
True.
Okay. Christian, a couple minutes here, real quick summary.
Well, for me, from the way we think, the way we plan, I found it very interesting to be up the stage and discuss it with the commercial side of the house as well, and seeing, well, they have the same ideas, they have the same thoughts forward. So keeps me, for me, it's very promising as a strategic planner. And for me, and we take that back, we will even go deeper and see how we can cooperate with, not only with the military side and with our allies, but also with the civilian side of the house. Maybe I might add one thing to it, because for us, and that's what we see, and that's why we restructured our MOD this way as well, we brought together the strategic planning, the capability manager, and then basically as another division within our MOD, the execution side of the house with the money. So for the way we are going right now is that we have a single point of contact. The industry can contact on the views and how we set the programs then into life, and then then from there on we go and bring it into a procurement process, and that's what I found very interesting again, because obviously that's what people are looking for. So very interesting and very fruitful from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Emmer?
Well, I think this is a very interesting model because it would resolve some of those issues related to procurement, process, success, strategy, but it also deals with outdated policies. Today we face outdated policies that are not geared towards providing a competitive environment. You need a competitive environment as a government customer in order to be the ultimate winner. So until you have the proper policies that are updated, that you have the strategy aligned with the procurement, and you have the incentives on the procurement side done properly, I think this is where you become the ultimate winner, when you have all of that done properly.
Thank you, sir.
Well, I guess I'd like to finish by saying, what are the 4 or 5 things I think are going to be absolutely key in the year ahead for the relationship between commercial and government. I think being global is key, because it gives you the agility in the relationship with government to support them wherever they are, whenever they need your support. I think bandwidth, incredibly rapid increase in bandwidth demands from our government customers needs a response. Capacity of your network and your ability to manipulate your network, to move that capacity around quickly, is key. Data services, clearly dominant in terms of growth, and I think the takeaway from that is the way in which you make your network able to support a rich and flexible solutions environment is key. Those are the key discriminating factors I think will drive success in government relationships over the next few years. Slightly ancillary, 2 other factors: your willingness to go downstream to offer end-to-end services, to deliver a bit to someone's door, to deal with the integration headache, to deliver a managed network service if necessary. That is going to be increasingly important as well to government customers looking to drive efficiency and to get value for money and drive the risk out of their business as well. I think the final area, theme for me looking ahead, is what Sam has been talking about repeatedly, is being willing to be part of hybrid networks, to participate, to work with other networks and other solutions, whether it's in a software-defined radio multi-protocol stack scenario or not, having an open approach to IP networking, those sort of things that allow you to be integrated into multi-protocol, genuinely interoperable capabilities. That's also going to be key as well.
Well, thank you. I want to thank all 3 members of our panel. Thanks to the Space Foundation, and thanks to you as the audience for being so attentive and excellent questions. As one of my previous bosses told me, he said, we know how big space is. We don't know how big information technology is going to be. So we haven't seen nothing yet. So we're glad that you all are innovators and part of it. And let the record reflect, we finished with 6 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Thank you.